Hi guys, in this video we are going to talk about how to create a surface in Civil 3D, and specifically what we are going to talk about is how we can add data into the environment, group the data that we have imported, and then finally create a 2D or 3D surface from our data. Now inside a Civil 3D environment, to be able to add data, there are actually two ways that you can do that. The first one is from the Home tab. Now under the create ground data panel, you select point and then you choose point creation tools, which gives you the pop-up to be able to add your data. And then the second option, which is the one I prefer to use most of the time, is to go through the tool space. Now inside the tool space, through the prospector tab, I'll select my point here, and then from here I write it to go to create, and then my create point dialog is opened. Now this section actually gives you the option to be able to manually create points or bring in data, but we want to bring in data, so look at the last one, which is import points. We select that one, and then the import point dialog, we head on straight to bring in our data inside the environment. So to bring in the data, we click on the plus sign to add the file, we select the file, and then we click on open. Now the file is being imported into the system, but the most important thing that we have to take note over here is the format at which your data is being arranged in. The data that I want to bring to the Civil 3D environment is this data, and then it is arranged in this format. The first column represents my points, the second column represents my eastings, the third column is for my northings, and then the last column is my height. So this is the data format. So it is PENZ. So inside the Civil 3D environment, I have to select this same thing to actually represent my data to be able to put into the correct location. Should I put a base map under it? So inside my under specify 0.5 formats, I'm going to select my PNZ comma delimited because it is from an Excel data. My data is stored in Excel, and then I imported it from Excel. So I will select my PNZ comma separated because it's from Excel. And then you will see that now my data is being arranged very well over here, like how it is in the Excel file or data or Excel sheet. So it is being arranged as points, eastings, northings, and then my point with elevation. That is the format for my data. Now what I want to do is I don't want to just put this point inside the Civil 3D software. Fine, you can go ahead and then click on OK to import the point inside the Civil 3D software. Most of the times I like to categorize all the data that I work with, because it could be I'll be adding several additional data into the system. Now to categorize this data, I'll click on add point to in point group, add point to point group, and then from here I'll specify the name of my point group. So this is going to be my survey data, existing survey. Let's name it existing survey. Click on OK, leave everything as it is, and then I'll click on OK, and then my data is now being imported into my Civil 3D environment. If yours is not imported like this, you can go ahead and then click on to zoom extent to zoom to wherever your data has been imported to, and then you have it. Now once my data is imported like this, under the two space section, right under point group, you see the point group that I just created, which is the existing survey. It is being created over here. And now if I should right click on it and then select it, you see all the points that are imported is being selected. And then anything that I want to do to this particular data is solely or would purposely be affected to this type of data and no other data inside the Civil 3D. Should I bring any other data? So right now what I'm looking at is just the point labels. So inside my existing survey, I go to properties and then change the point label star for this one. So I can go ahead and set it to point elevation, click on apply, and then you see my elevation data being shown over here close beside it. So now once I have my point or my data imported into the system, the next thing is to create a 2D or 3D surface. Now the 2D or 3D surface, just as we created with the points, we are going to go to the tool space, another prospector tab. We have a section we call what surface. So I'll right click on the surface, and then I'll go to create surface. Now from the create surface pop-up, another type we are going to use a thin surface. We have a thin surface, grid surface, thin volume surface, and then a grid volume surface. And then we are going to create a thin surface. Now the thin surface is like a network of lines that creates triangles. And then these triangles that is being created create planes that are the face of a surface inside the Civil 3D. So you go ahead and select the thin surface. You can also create a grid surface, but then the most accurate one, which is going to accurately represent the data that you have inside the software or the data that you want to pick on site, is the thin surface. And then we are going to select the thin surface. Now under the name section, we change it and give it a different name, call it EG, and under the description, give it as existing survey data. And then from the style, we can choose a different style at which we want to represent our surface. Now when you click on the three dots, we have a surface style pop up. Now inside this drop down, we can select a whole range of options that we have depending on what you want to represent it with it. Now I'm going to select existing ground contours and then click on OK. Now under the render material, click on the three dots. You can leave it at by block or whatever that you have, by layer. Any of these ones is okay. Leave it at site work, plant and gravel. Click OK, and then I'll click on OK. Now that I've clicked on OK, my surface is being created. Now though the surface is created, until I have added a data to the surface, there is no information to build the surface that I have created. And so what I have now is just an empty surface with nothing to display. So to build the surface that you have created, we would have to connect the data that we have imported into the system to the surface that we just created. And to do that, under the surface section, you locate the existing EG surface that we just created. And then from the EG surface, you click on the drop down, and then we go to the definition section and click on the drop down as well. Now from here, we head on to point groups, right click and then click on add, which sends us to the point group window. Now inside the point group window, we are going to create a surface for the existing survey data that we imported, and that is what we select. And we select the existing survey, click on apply, then we click on OK. And then you will see that our surface is now being created with the contour line showing as it's appearing. And then you can equally use the orbit tool to clearly look at how your surface is looking like. And then you could see that the thin surface that we just created is accurately representing how our ground level is looking like. So our surface model is now being built, and then we can equally look at it in 3D. We can equally look at it in 3D. So to look at it in 3D, we select the surface, right click and go to object viewer. And now from the object viewer, we are going to, from here we select conceptual, and then you see that the surface that we just created is now being created for us in 3D, and then we'll be able to look at how our surface looks like. And from this, we'll be able to make further modifications as to how we want to make our design, if you want to make any design as to how we want to make it. So from here, you can see that this side is raised, is high up a bit. This particular side is also high up a bit. So that is that with the 3D side if you want to look at it in 3D. Now Civil 3D 2026 I think has a realistic view. Let me look at the realistic view and see. Okay, the realistic view doesn't show anything good, but then when we have a good working surface, I think we would be able to look at how the surface is properly. Now you close this dialog and then we are here. So that is that on how you create a surface inside Civil 3D.